morning. My name is Rachel Carruthers, and I'm the events manager at the Portland Regional Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to IT Basics for Business, a breakfast seminar series that provides a forum to gain useful do-it-yourself IT solutions and insightful, actionable tips. I want to thank Uprise Partners for allowing us to bring you this virtual event series for the entire season. I'd like to welcome you all to the fourth and final installment of IT Basics for Business for calendar year 2023-24. This four-part, bi-monthly, season-long series runs from November through June. Today's topic, Mastering Email and Productivity, is presented by Kyle Peterson, Senior Director of Services at Uprise Partners. Uprise Partners is our presenting sponsor of IT Basics for Business for this entire season. At this time, I'd like to introduce Uprise Partners Chief Operating Officer, Nancy Mather, to the floor to tell us a bit more about the work that Uprise Partners does.
Welcome, everyone. Uprise Partners is an information technology and cybersecurity services provider headquartered here in Maine. We have team members here and across the United States, and we serve customers across the globe. We have a distinct approach and ensure that we customize technology to meet unique business needs. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. We've been recognized as one of the top 250 technology solution providers in North America, and we're also just named for the past 4 years one of the top 100 security firms and among the top 500 MSPs in North America. If you'd like to understand how we could partner, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Like all the Chamber's virtual signature events, today's presentation is free and will be recorded. It'll be made available for free replay on the Chamber's website and YouTube page. To keep up to date on all the Chamber's news and events, visit our website, portlandregion.com. Check out our events page and sign up for our weekly email newsletter while you're there. Before we begin today's program, I just want to remind everyone that we are using a platform called StreamYard this morning. This platform provides improved production and interactive elements that truly enhance virtual events. On that note, I'd like to point out that when you have questions for Kyle today, you can type them in the YouTube chat. I will relay them to our speaker at the conclusion of the presentation, where we'll save some time for Q&A. At this point, I'm going to introduce our presenter. Kyle Peterson is a Senior Director of Services at Uprise Partners, where he's responsible for new customer experience and services operations. He works with customers on Chief Information Officer advisory and has optimized IT environments for hundreds of customers. Kyle specializes in email security, security compliance, and disaster recovery. And we're very grateful to have him with us this morning. Now, with that, I'll hand the mic over to Kyle to kick off his presentation.
Cool. Thank you, Rachel. I'm excited to be back. We love doing these. I'm really looking forward to talking more about email productivity tools and how you can integrate those into your business. So the first thing I wanted to talk through is really, why are we talking about email today, right? Is it really that important? Are there that many things that we can improve on in how we use email? And that's one of the things that we notice in the day-to-day is that something like email or even Teams or Slack, if you're using those, they become so embedded in your workday that you may not realize, one, how much time you're actually spending in your inbox, and two, that there are actually some really easy ways that you can trim down the time that you are spending in the inbox. So a really interesting study done by McKinsey showed that 28% of the workday is actually spent reading and answering emails. So that is a pretty incredible number when you think about what are you doing in your email. Obviously, that'll fluctuate depending on what your role is, what you're working on. But another way to put that is that's about 2.5 hours roughly of every single day being spent just in email, reading, answering them. And they do also estimate that you're going to interact with roughly 120 emails per day. So that could be anything from spam email, that could be actual actionable items, clients that you need to speak to, vendors. But that's a lot of time spent just in your inbox replying to people. So we definitely view this as something that, again, kind of gets overlooked because it's so part of your day to day that it gets forgotten about, that there are improvements there that can be found. So again, why it matters. Great quote here by John C. Maxwell. Kind of just talking more about that, like it's stuff that you do every single day. That is really where you're going to find those improvements and kind of push yourself ahead. Is how are you going to improve those, even if it's something incremental, right? Even if it's just 1% of your day frees up, or just a few minutes, that matters and that adds up over time. So we're going to just talk about um, some of the tips, some of the tricks that we use, not just here at Uprise, but some of the industry leading tools that you can leverage to buy yourself back a little bit of time and really help with collaboration amongst your team. So again, we're going to talk about a few things. Really, the first sort of half of this will be focused on specifically email. So some strategies around email, spam. If you saw my other webinar, we talked a lot about phishing and spam and how to recognize that, how to report emails. We'll spend some time on that, and then we'll also talk through some of the more familiar productivity tools, more popular tools. We won't go into the nitty gritty, right? I won't show you all the features and functions, but we'll talk about high level. What do they do, and how could they help you, right? So we're going to talk about that through. We have a couple case studies with some notable names. You'll recognize them right away. Some teams that actually didn't have these in place and integrated them and really saw a lot of improvement across their whole business. So one theme that you're going to see is leveraging your mail platform with your third party tools. I'm going to say the word collaboration probably too many times, right? But that's kind of the whole focus of this: is how do we get these tools to make you more efficient, help your team collaborate, and save you some time. So when we're talking through this, we had primarily two main email tools in mind, right? Outlook and Gmail. You're probably most familiar with these. So as we're talking through this, yes, a lot of these tools will integrate with other platforms, but we had these in mind because they're really the industry leading tools. Whether it's something that you're using on mobile, if it's something on desktop, we really wanted to look at Outlook and Gmail because they also tend to support or have the most support and integrations with third-party applications and tools. And that's something that, again, we'll talk about throughout this whole process. Is a place where a lot of people get stuck is that they think, well, Outlook doesn't do this, but Gmail does this, and then vice versa. I'm just kind of stuck. I won't be able to be productive. There are a lot of third-party tools out there, too many to name, that probably do that one little function that you're looking for, that can be implemented in a couple of minutes. So again, these are really good tools to leverage. And so, in addition to those, I wanted to talk through some of the productivity tools that we'll reference. Uh, our team has a lot of familiarity with these. You've probably seen most of these names, if not all of them. But just really quickly, Slack and Teams, right? These are tools that allow for great team communication, collaboration. There's a couple different ways that they do that. So that may be between direct messaging, allowing you to ping a team member. All of it is done in real time. So think of it sort of like a text message, or maybe email is more like a phone call. This is just a quick back and forth that you can have. Allows you to create public channels for collaboration. So one to many messages. Again, you have those one to one messages, and maybe just an announcement board. So these two tools, Slack and Teams, accomplish similar things. With just, it's really a preference of if you want to go with one versus the other. Um, Really, also where they shine is your ability to share files through them as well. They may not be the best place to do that. In some cases, there are a lot of other tools where you can share files, like something like SharePoint or Google Drive. But again, these integrate nicely with those tools, so you can use that for that as well. Asana and Trello. So these are really more focused on improving project management as well as team collaboration, right? So there are tools like Microsoft Planner that are good as well. That's just built right into the Microsoft suite. But Asana and Trello really stand out. And again, they integrate in with tools like Gmail and Outlook. So they're going to really help you break down your projects into manageable tasks, different project planning views, notifications, things of that nature. And then we also have Copilot in here. So for those of you who don't know what Copilot is, that's an AI powered tool that integrates into pretty much every Microsoft 365 application. So you're going to think about Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, like we've talked about. So a couple features of that. It really is good at generating content. So helping you with, I can think of, an email I've written before, right? Where maybe I felt I was coming off too harsh and I wanted to kind of lighten it up and be a little more friendly. It'll give you insight into that. Hey, you could do this, you could change this sentence, or maybe even the other way. If you want to be more direct, it can help kind of push you in that direction. Gives you great data insight as well. One of my favorite functions is the creating meeting summaries. So we're talking about today, how do we use these productivity tools to get us out of email, essentially out of email, focus on what we should be doing. Um, Copilot is great with creating meeting summaries, creating smart replies. So you can just send a follow-up email and it could just be auto-generated with items, action items that were talked about during a meeting, things like that, as well as automating tasks. So Copilot is a very, very nice tool. Um, if you have questions about it, feel free to reach out. It's relatively new for general purpose use. So understand if people haven't heard of it, but definitely look into it. So want to talk about a few email strategies that might work for you. And the first thing I want to say is kind of that tip right there is that these email strategies are not one size fits all. So it's a starting point, and then you can kind of adapt it to what works for you. If you look at these and say, well, geez, I did the inbox zero methodology. I implemented that, but I'm still not spending. I really hate it. Having a really bad time doing this, but I thought this was supposed to work. You may have to take pieces from all three of these to get you to where you need to go. So I just want to start with that because I think there is this misunderstanding that these are not just going to solve all your problems. They're guidelines. They're just a place to start and a way to change how you're thinking about how you look and interact with your inbox. The 2-minute rule, I really like this. I implement this myself, not religiously, right? But I really try to follow this. But really, all that is it's just if an email takes less than 2 minutes to answer, you should answer it immediately. You shouldn't wait. You should get it, give it a quick scan, and say, okay, I can get this replied within 2 minutes. What this does is it actually keeps your inbox more organized, quickly clears out small tasks. It reduces clutter in the inbox, I guess is a good way to say that. So if you have a lot of these, maybe you have 10 emails that all take 2 minutes to reply to, but you don't look at them until the end of the day, you've now added quite a bit of time to the end of your day trying to get back to these emails that really you could have just probably popped off a quick reply in the middle of your workflow. So it really prevents creating that backlog of emails to just try to get through those. The other one, inbox zero, I would say this is more of a drastic approach. This would be something that really takes a lot of dedication and um, really you have to focus on it and be very yeah, like I said, religious with it. So the theory here is that emails should be processed as soon as they're open, and you should not use your inbox as a sort of to-do list. The goal is to handle every email in your inbox once, if possible. Some items, obviously, you need to table for when you have more time to reply to them. But the general idea is you touch the email in some way, whether it's delegating to someone else, replying to it, whatever it is, uh, and then you delete it, and then you just delete it and you get rid of it. So if that gives you a little bit of anxiety, thinking you want me to delete my email right after I've read it or once I'm done with it, yeah, me too. I'm right there with you, and that's why I don't follow this one to a T, because that just doesn't work for me. Some of the ideas of this work for me, but um, it's just not how I operate and how I best work through my inbox. So, again, some of the high level items with Inbox Zero, that thought process is you delete or archive after reading a message, you delegate. If the email comes in and it's not for you, delegate it out right away and then delete the email. If someone replies, you can obviously have it back and forth, but then get rid of it. You're looking for 0 emails in your inbox. Um, and then again, there's obviously some of these need to be action items and you need to keep those emails in your inbox. The last one, uh, call it important emails, right? So this is a strategy that really turns your inbox into more of a task list. This is something that I do as well. So I really follow the 2-minute rule and the important emails uh, strategy. So really what it is turn your inbox into a task list. If there's something, again, that you can reply to quickly, reply to it. Don't let that stuff stack up. But if it's something important, flag it, put a star next to it. What's really important is that you yourself have a very clear system for how emails are marked, right? So is it that you put them in a certain folder? Are there multiple folders? Are you flagging them? Do you color code them? There's really no wrong answer there, but what's important is that you have a guide for yourself and that you follow it. That's really the focus of the important emails strategy. So again, not a one size fits all, but these tools have definitely helped myself, a lot of people that I work with, and again, are just another way to think about your inbox that maybe you would never think. Oh my gosh, there's so much strategy involved in this. It's not just reply to email every when you get a chance. There are some ways to improve on it. So along with that, there's the actual emails themselves. How can you cut down on back and forth, right? Too many back and forths with someone. Maybe you're not being clear. Maybe it's too complicated. So looking at the subject line, be specific, concise, summarize the main point in a few words. Someone should be able to quickly see the subject line and understand what is this email about that I'm going to read. Because think about it, for them too, they're probably doing the same thing you are. They're trying to get out of their inbox. They don't want to get a subject line that's blank or vague or something. And now they have to dig into the email, read through it. They're trying to figure out what is this even for. Keep your subject line specific and concise. Clarity and brevity as well. So the actual email itself, same thing. Keep it clear and straightforward, right? You know how best to communicate with your team members, your clients. So I won't tell you, cut out all the fun stuff or things that you might throw in that give your emails, your own personality, but try to keep them clear and straightforward. Because like I said, they're probably doing the same thing. They need to really focus, get out of their inbox as best they can, or at least make the time inside their inbox more efficient. So really try to be direct and to the point. And then an example of when not to email is after, for example, 2 replies, the issue is still unresolved. At that point, it's probably better to schedule a meeting, give them a call, find some other form of communication. This could be because really 2 main things that I've seen is the message just isn't getting through, whether it's to you or to them. You're not really understanding the point of the message, or it is a really complex message. It is something where you may be halfway through a novel of an email and you kind of scratch your head and go, maybe I could have just called them and talked through this, right? So there's some areas where you just need to think about, well, should this actually be an email? Can I just give them a quick call? We've gone back and forth 3 or 4 times now, and we're still not really landing on anything. Typically, something like a phone call, or just a change of communication is beneficial. So something we've talked about before, and we have this beautiful picture of spam on the side here, is how to handle spam, right? Spam, phishing. Um, Spam really is an inevitable email evil. If you think that there is a perfect fix to spam, unfortunately, there's no one fix. There's probably not even 2 or 3 fixes. There are ways that we can improve on blocking spam, identifying spam. Absolutely, there are ways that we can get it to practically zero spam getting through. But we're never going to stop it. It is something that it requires constant management. It is always changing, right? It's back and forth. Bad actors are always finding new ways to bypass spam filters and socially engineer people, trick people into clicking on these emails. So like I said, it really requires a consistent management of both training your team, training yourself, uh, optimizing your spam filter. So whether you have a third party filter or you have the built-in filter with maybe Google or Outlook, you need to be constantly managing that to keep up with the changes in spam. So one way to do that is stay informed of latest spam trends. It's really easy to just Google it. What can I do to avoid spam? What are the common trends of a spam message, which we'll talk through now. But it's really simple. Just Google searches can teach you a lot just to start, just to give you a place to look at. If you're getting tricked by it, if you're noticing that you're getting a lot of spam as well, what are some things you can change on the spam filter? Again, it's starting small and then building up to bigger changes. Um, and then again, technology and process solution. It's a combination of both. I could tell you, you could put in a third party spam filter that may do a really, really great job. It won't stop everything. Things are going to get through. You could even do that with the built in spam filters. Some of those are really great. But the other side of that is that you need people reporting those messages. You need people helping your spam filter understand, hey, your spam filter will go, I let that through because it looked like a legitimate marketing email or looked like someone that sent you an email before. Let me know. Let me know if it actually is, and you can mark it as junk, and it should learn over time um, what is and isn't spam. So again, I say always report spam when you see it. There's never a time where I would say don't report it. Sometimes it'll feel maybe like a futile effort where you feel like you're just sitting there reporting spam some days and nothing's happening. Uh, it really does help, and it just takes time. Takes time and a lot of the team reporting those messages. So with that, have a few spam tips, how to identify and how to manage spam. I feel like I've said spam so many times. um, but a couple things to look for, right? And I'm sure you've seen these come into your inbox, and you'll probably be like, "Oh yeah, I know about these. I've been tricked by this," or "Yeah, I just had one this morning, maybe." Right? But you're going to look for things like a generic greeting, so things that say "Dear customer" instead of your name. That can be something as simple as that can be a red flag. It doesn't mean that it is spam, but it's something to look for, especially if it's someone you've talked to before. Is that the way that they normally speak? Do they call you dear customer? Do they say your name? Um, Look out for things like that. Check for spelling and grammar errors. So, believe it or not, most spam emails have some sort of spelling mistake, whether it's in the name, it's in the sign off message, maybe it's just in the body of it, maybe it's obvious. Sometimes it's not obvious, right? Lowercase l, uppercase I, right? Those letters look very, very similar. Sometimes it's hard to see. Uh, be wary of urgent, threatening language. A common tactic that actually works quite often is a scare tactic. They will tell you, "Look, you have you have 2 hours to do this, or I'm going to release all your data to the world, right? Or you need to do this, or I'm gonna call the authorities. I saw what you did last week, and oh my god, I saw it, and I'm recording you, and things like that. They're not, right? You need to look out for those threatening quick languages, and you need to report it immediately. Don't wait. Don't sit there. Don't be embarrassed and say like, "Oh, geez, I clicked on this because I was a little nervous," or "Oh, I got this, and I don't want anyone to see it because it's saying some embarrassing things about me that aren't true." Report it right away. And nobody's gonna judge. Nobody's gonna be bothered by reporting spam, even if it's super obvious. Um, you need to report that right away. And then another big one is inspecting the sender email address. Is it actually coming from who it says it's coming from? Right? It may look similar. The domain might be similar. The name might show as similar, but when you actually look at something like the email address, it could be totally wrong. So you want to think: have you gotten something from this person from the address that it's coming from? Are you expecting an email from that person? Keep those things in mind. And then how to manage it, right? So, we just talked about this a little bit, but regularly updating your spam filters. For the most part, they'll update themselves, right? They're smart enough to look at common trends, understand who's reporting what, and they'll get better. But if you're noticing a high level of spam, go in there, turn up the sensitivity, become a little more strict. You don't want to swing the pendulum too far where now you're blocking everything. Um, but definitely regularly updating your spam filter is good. And there's no easy like, oh yeah, do it once a week, do it twice a day, once a month. It's really up to what are you seeing for spam, what's getting through, what isn't getting through. And then you can kind of gauge it from there if you need to update it maybe once a week, once every other week, or monthly. Um, Unsubscribe from unwanted newsletters. And I will jump to the next bullet too, which is avoid clicking on suspicious links. So those kind of go hand in hand where you don't ever want to interact with a spam email, right? So you don't ever want to click on a link. But there's a difference between unsubscribing from unwanted newsletters and a spam message appearing to be one. So, for example, remember that newsletter? And I've done this. I actually just did it the other day, but maybe there was a technology you were really interested in or some topic you were interested in, and you sign up for their newsletter. That was like 6 or 7 months ago, and you haven't opened a single one from them since. You know that it's a real message, but you don't want that newsletter anymore. You can always resubscribe later. So what that does is it helps so you're not just going through emails really quickly and not really actually reading them. Cleans up your inbox, helps you identify what is the real spam and what are real messages. Um, so again, I say unsubscribe from newsletters, but also don't just click every link that you see because you think you're going to unsubscribe. If you've never heard of it before, if it looks totally foreign to you, it's better to just report the spam. Every email platform has a report spam, report drunk, report junk functionality. So utilize that. It's there for a reason. Again, it might feel futile at some points, but it is going to make a big difference over time as long as you and your whole team are doing it. So we'll talk about a few advanced email features as well. So um, these have a little bit of a learning curve just to get started. It might feel a little burdensome, and how to learn how to use these tools or just get them set up in the first place. But once you get into them, they're very easy to use. So scheduling emails and auto replies, right? So that's actually something that Outlook does a great job of, along with Copilot. Is it will tell you if you're writing an email, maybe it's late at night, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. When you go to send an email, it will pop up and it'll say, "Hey, you actually get a lot more replies if you send this at 8 in the morning, maybe 9 in the morning." It may even recommend based on the other person's behavior, right? It won't tell you what it is, but it might make recommendations that fit what you're looking for to get you a better response, a better open rate, and really have a better experience for you both. So email scheduling is a very, very nice tool. So you're not just having to send the email right when you're writing it if it's too late. Another great feature is templates. So templates can be customized, reused. It makes handling repetitive tasks a lot easier. So one, it saves you time because you're not writing the same thing over and over and over and over, but it also helps you maintain consistency, right? So if you're just writing the same thing, it's going to come out the same way every time using a template. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But in most cases, it is really good to keep that consistent across not just yourself, but your whole team if it's a message that you want to come out the same way every time. So definitely look into utilizing templates. And then the advanced search feature. Uh, Search can be a pain in email platforms, but there is a way in Outlook, for example, to drop down the search bar, and you can actually search the to field, the from field. Does the email have attachments? What's the time range that it was sent or received from? Um, Definitely want to use advanced search wherever you can if you're trying to look for older emails or look for an older conversation. So now we'll kind of talk about integrating your email with productivity tools. So we talked a lot about spam, maybe some strategies around email, but there are tools out there that can help with your email with that productivity. So using email alongside task management tools for project tracking. Uh, this is a great function. This has helped a ton of people. So one big function is email to task conversion. It allows you to stay in one place and create a task in something like Trello or Asana, right? So these are things that are typically just baked right into either of these platforms. You can maybe check a box that says, when I send this email out, I want you to create a task to maybe it's follow up or create an action item to do something based on the email. These are very nice functions that save you from having to maybe send the email, shoot someone a message, see if they can add something to the Trello board, or you have to then go into Trello and add it yourself. You can do it in one motion. Another thing that has really helped me personally is automating sort of like a daily digest or a weekly digest from some of these productivity tools so you can consolidate notifications. So something that'll pop up is you know notifications from someone who maybe has added to a board or they've maybe tagged you in something in a productivity tool and you might be getting pinged constantly. Something you can do is actually create a digest that will send you at the very end of the day, maybe twice a day, notifications that have come in from those tools. And that'll go right into your inbox. So again, it's just another way to consolidate how you're looking at all of this information instead of, okay, I got to look at my emails to see what I have here. Now I have to go to my Asana board to see who's talking about certain things over here. Um, it's really helpful. And then another one is automating workflow between them. So a lot of these tools will have native integrations with, again, Outlook and Gmail integrate with a lot of tools. But there are other things like Zapier, which is a third-party tool that can help create integrations between the tools. So wherever you can, try to automate. And that doesn't mean automate everything all at once right away. You're probably going to have a really bad time if you try to do that. So start with something small. Receive that weekly notification. How do you automate those daily digests? Start there. How do you track emails inside of your CRM platform? Right? Start with something like that. Once you have that down, you can move to more advanced workflows. Maybe something like triggering an email when something moves from one stage to another in your project management platform, right? Something a little more advanced, and then go on from there. And then again, team communication and collaboration, right? So utilize shared inboxes, calendars. Give your team less places to look for information. Give them one pane of glass as best you can, so they're not bouncing around between tools. Set clear guidelines. This is a really big one. Clear guidelines on how to use each tool. So the better foundation you have, the better the rest of your experience is going to be with these integrations. We want to make sure that right up front, uh, you have a clear path that you're trying to follow, a clear problem that you're trying to solve, and that'll change along the way. But you really want to try to nail that down up front, build off of that, and it'll really help your team adopt the tool. And then the last one, regular feedback and training sessions. Listen to your team, right? They're the people who are going to be in it every single day, or maybe it's you that's going to be in it every single day. We want that feedback, or you want that feedback, right? Um, One mistake that people might make is, okay, I saw in the demo, this is how you use this tool, this is how this function works, that's how we're using it. I don't care. That might not work for you. The way that they described it in maybe the demo or what you're seeing online may not work for you. Talk to the team, talk to your teammates, perform training sessions. If you have someone who really gets it or has used it in the past, maybe have them jump on a 30-minute session with the team to just explain what they've done in the past. Cool. And I think we have a question here. Let's see. As someone historically less than perfect about managing my inbox, what would you say is a good first step or first focus to get into better habits like the ones you've shared today? A good 1 week goal. Yeah, that is a really good question. I would actually recommend. See if yeah, I would recommend trying to do the 2-minute rule as a just a starting point. So you don't have to change anything about what you're doing, except that when an email comes in that can be quickly replied to, just reply to it. That is a really, really good place to start. Um, what I think is probably happening now, if you're struggling with it, um, is you might get that and you might go, okay, that's going to be a quick reply. I'll just do it later. I'll just do it later. I'm trying to get this done. I'll do that later. Start there. I really think that's a good goal. And by the end of the week, if you try it for just 1 week, I bet you will notice that the end of your day maybe feels a little less stressful, and maybe feels a little bit like less of a backlog, if you just implement that one 2-minute rule. So yeah, that's a really good question. So I want to talk through a couple of case studies, and I'm sure you've heard of Trek Bicycle. They're a global leader in bicycle design manufacturing. A problem that they were running into is that they were struggling with communication and collaboration across its teams. One of those reasons was because of COVID-19. Another was because just in general, they were spread out across uh, multiple locations and really didn't have a good way to communicate back and forth. So what they did is they implemented Microsoft Teams. Um, so that helped them centralize communication, and it also integrated with other Microsoft 365 tools that they were already using. So they didn't have to learn both sides of things, right? They didn't have to implement a whole new set of productivity tools alongside it. They just needed to integrate Teams, and it worked with all of their other tools that they were already using. So really what they were trying to use it for was that real-time collaboration. So using it as just a chat platform, virtual meetings. So replacing something like Zoom, it's just built into Teams. And then the project management, which admittedly, that's not something I've really used it for in the past. But there are functions of it like integrating Planner, Microsoft Planner, into it. There are a lot of different meeting tools that could help with project management. So what they found after implementing it and giving it some time is that it really, really helped with team collaboration better than they've ever had before. They were finding that they were relying a lot less on email, and they actually had a lot more real time interaction. So they were solving problems even faster because they had that quick way to talk to each other and solve problems. Um, Again, this was through file sharing, direct messages, public channels, working on documents at the same time with each other, stuff that they couldn't do before. And again, the integration with Microsoft 365, that's great. And we see that a lot with Teams integrations. And then the remote work enablement, right? So they allowed people to work remotely. People were having to commute less. People who had maybe never really met before, aside from maybe the occasional meeting, were talking much more frequently. And I think looking back at stuff like this, it's hard to see how a company like Trek Bicycle would function without a tool like Microsoft Teams alongside their Microsoft suite. And then another use case is Trello and the British Red Cross. So what they were struggling with is that they had multiple teams all over the place, various locations, running different initiatives, right? So they weren't just focused on one project and it's one project at a time. They had many projects across many different teams that they had to figure out. Okay, how do we get everyone on the same page with these, right? And they were doing this without something like Trello. So they implemented it to start tracking their projects using things like their visual boards, their lists, their cards. Um, One thing they noted is that the flexibility to create customized boards for different teams and projects was one of the big reasons that they went with Trello. So it wasn't just, Trello comes in and here's how we do it, and you need a Kanban board, and this is how you're going to do it. You could be very flexible so that different teams could almost have a different product in a way based on how they needed to use it. So some of the results and benefits is that they provided clear overviews of project statuses, help teams stay aligned and on the same page. Teams could easily assign tasks, set due dates, uh, attach documents, right? So we just talked about how Teams can help you with that. Trello can also help you with this. Or again, Asana is another tool similar to this, but in this case, this is what the British Red Cross did. Uh, they also found that items like just a drag and drop interface helped people adopt the tool. It cut down on administrative tasks. People were just able to drag and move things very easily. And then the customizable features, like I said, that was just great for them to be able to be flexible across all of their teams. All right. And yeah, I see we have a question from Jennifer. Can we get a copy of your slides? Yeah, I think we'll be sending out a recording, and yeah, we could send out a copy of this. Awesome. So, some things to watch out for, right? What are some common pitfalls, and how do you avoid them, right? So, what are some pitfalls of implementing these tools, and what do you want to look out for? Uh, we've said it before, but these tools are not going to be a one size fits all solution. They need to be tailored to fit your specific needs. A lot of these platforms will offer not only a free trial, but multiple demos. So you can get in there yourself and also work with an expert at that company to have them walk you through some common tools, right? They'll most likely want to listen to what your problems are. They've done this hundreds and hundreds of times. They'll be able to tell you kind of what you're looking for and send you in a direction. A lot of the tools also come with pre-built templates and workflows that are in the platform itself when you get started. That is a good starting point, but don't feel like you need to change your entire workflow just to match the templates that are in there. Customize it, play around with it. It's okay to break things at the start because you need to know what works for you and the team. Don't give up if you don't have immediate results. That is a really big one. It's really easy to get started with one of these tools and actually feel like you're losing productivity at first. So the way I talk about it is that it has a really high upfront investment, but a good return over time. So do not get discouraged upfront. There's no exact timeline where I could say, you know, by week 3, you're going to feel great and it's going to be no problem. Because we need to see what you're using it for, right? You need to understand what problem you're trying to solve. It could take 2 months. It could take 1 week, and your team might go, "Oh my gosh, how did we live without this?" Right? I've been on both sides of that, where you really don't feel the effects until 4 months, and I felt the effects immediately. Really depends on what you're using it for. What's important is that uh, your team is on board and that your team is adopting it as well. So with that is invest in training. Do not underestimate putting time into your team and putting time into learning the platform up front. So that might be offering regular training sessions, a refresher course, things like that that can avoid poor adoption from your team. So if your team feels like every time they go into the platform, they have to reinvent the wheel to do something or they have to create a new function, you need to take a step back and reevaluate your guidelines and how you're training your team on this platform. So make sure your team knows what's at their disposal, what can they do, how do they use it, what are their resources, and just make sure that they're educated and they feel comfortable with the tool. Right. And I see we have a question from Jason. From an IT perspective, which communication platform, Zoom or Teams, do you feel brings more to the table in terms of ease of use and features? So, yeah, from my perspective, I would say Teams brings more overall. So, even if you're using Google Suite as your main platform, I still think Teams is a better solution than something like Zoom. So Zoom is great for if you're just looking for videos and you're trying to have video calls. They do a really good job of that. They have a lot of good uh, tools, whiteboarding tools, things like that. Teams has those as well. But where it really shines, as I mentioned, is the integrations that you can do with Teams are not just limited to a meeting platform. You can integrate like Trello, you can integrate Asana, you can create different channels for different alerts. You can have public channels versus private channels. There are a lot of different things that you can do in there, and again, the content sharing is great because it in Zoom, if you pop something in there, it's great to collaborate on while you're on the call. But after that, it's really hard to kind of pull it into the other platforms and start working with it. So Teams is a really nice single pane of glass, as I've mentioned before. So I definitely recommend that. And also from a security perspective, there are a lot of different things that you can do, uh, even just on the meeting piece, in terms of what access do external users have, what can you share, what can they share, how does the chat functionality work. So there's a lot from the IT perspective and just a user perspective that I think Teams is just a better platform. That's a great question. So I touched on this kind of in the last slide, but really enable your team to feel comfortable using these platforms, right? So kind of some strategies for encouraging adoption. One is demonstrate that value, right? So some examples: explain the key functions of the tool. Does your team even know what this is for? Is this just another tool that you're throwing at them that they need to learn and might be a distraction, or is it something that can help them throughout their day? So show them right up front the value. Give real world examples. There are tons of use cases out there. Some that I just showed, but find one that's relevant to what your team is going through. What are their pain points? How can these tools help them with those? And then give them a live demonstration. What better way to show them how it works than you or a subset of users who can be your champions? Get them in there, have a little demo with your team, and just say, "Look, it's this easy. Look, I set this up. I set this up." Internally here at Uprise, we have that all the time, right? We celebrate those. We'll post and say, "Oh my gosh, and this tool, I just set this automation up, so this when I click this, it does this over here." Right? It's like a little celebration. So um, really enable your team, demonstrate the value by maybe just doing a live demonstration yourself. Uh, Another piece is minimizing disruption. So consider a phased rollout of a tool like this and don't try to just throw everything at everyone all at once. Um, you might want to think about something like a pilot group, maybe a couple people on your team that they get maybe early access to the platform so they can really look and see what does this thing do? What are our capabilities? How could it help? How might it not help? Your first shot at a tool like this might kind of fall flat. It might not be what you need and you have to look at another platform. So getting a pilot group in there to catch any hiccups is great, but also they'll become advocates within your organization. It's not just one person trying to sell it to the team or just a couple people. You can really have a team that wants to adopt these platforms. So, and the other piece of this is, again, don't underestimate the time needed for education. You're not just going to roll it out and everyone's going to get it, everyone's going to understand it. You need to put time in to educate your team. So, I just mentioned it. Think about what your biggest pain points are, right? Choose a technique, email strategy, whatever it is. Choose a platform like Trello, Asana, something of that nature. Choose a tool. Start there. You don't want to just throw everything out and pull in all these new tools and say we're going to become efficient tomorrow. It's just not how it works, right? So, in closing, want to talk about personalizing your action plan, right? So, what are just 3 high-level key steps that you need to do to just get started here? The first thing you need to do is assess your team's needs, right? Um, Identify your pain points, where are your workflow efficiencies, have some working sessions. And notice it's some working sessions. Don't just have one hour, 30 minutes where you get together and you all kind of just talk about the things that suck. Maybe that's the first call, right? But then create action items, create actual documented places where your team is struggling, where you have those pain points. And that is a really, really good place to start. And again, gather the input from team members. Find out what their specific requirements and preferences are. It's not just about one group of people. It's not about just the key stakeholder, right? Those are important, but you need to understand your whole team. How are you going to help with these tools? What are the biggest time sinks? Um, the next one is, once you get into the tool, right? Customize the tool's features. Uh, Tailor settings, templates, integrations you might need to pull in. Tailor that to your team's workflow, right? So it's not just you're not just going to pop in and every template's going to work for you. If it does, that's fantastic. That just saves you even more time. Because if you went from nothing to maybe the first set of templates, you're going to notice a difference. In addition with that, set up some custom dashboards, custom fields, notifications, really tailor it to your project management style. Going back to the one size doesn't fit all, these platforms have a lot of different ways they can be tweaked. And then again, we'll say it one more time, provide training and support. Hands-on training sessions, easy to follow guides, tons of resources out there for all of these tools, and establishing a support system. If I'm a user and I have questions, again, am I reinventing the wheel? Am I on my own to figure out how this tool works or where I'm stuck? If you're not the main point of contact, who at the vendor, who at the product is the main point of contact? Who should they reach out to? What is your process for uh, reaching out for support and having that support system in place? The more you establish all of that up front, the easier it is for your team to adopt it, and the easier it is for you to get more efficient. Because if you're just adopting the platform yourself, you're probably not an expert. And that is what I have for you all today. Thank you very much. I hope this was helpful. Any questions before we wrap up? Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Kyle. That was extremely helpful for me. Thank you so much. Thank you for another great IT Basics for Business presentation from Uprise Partners. And thanks, of course, to my fellow chamber staff for helping to produce yet another successful virtual event. Thank you for each of you for attending this morning and throughout the season. If you're interested in learning more and continuing the conversation with Kyle, be sure to check your email for a follow-up message with links to additional resources. Kyle's presentation today will be included in that email. Another shout out to our sponsor, of course, Uprise Partners, for their support and contributions to the IT Basics for Business series. This has been our fourth and final event in this series, and we look forward to continuing this series again in the fall. We'll see you again in the fall for another informational season of IT Basics for Business, brought to you by Uprise Partners. All right, everyone, thank you again for attending. Enjoy the rest of your day.